Courtney, we're going to keep moving on. Don't want to run out of time before we get to everything. But when you first got started, I love your motivation story. And I love hearing how you got into that first property. I want to know, when you first got started, did you have a detailed vision of how your investing career would go, or a roadmap is what we call it?
I didn't. And I often say that was probably one of my biggest mistakes. So that very first deal, I literally just I didn't want to live at home I didn't want to go throw money away at rent. So I had these things that I didn't want to do, but what I didn't have was a really good plan of what I wanted to do. Right. And then the second deal I did, I bought it off of Craigslist for $20,000 and got to love the house. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house with a trailer on the property, but we ended up having to tear down the trailer. I renovated the house, and I was going to keep it as a rental. But the problem was my skill set was so low. Basically, I had bought that first property with cash. For my very first property was a condo. I bought it for $40,100, put $5,000, and I used the Home Depot credit cards and to buy the supplies. Renovated 90+% of it myself by guidance of some other people. So I'm 45,000 in, and it was worth 85. Because I had paid cash for it, I got a home equity line of credit because I still had that job. And so before I quit that job, I made sure I had that line of credit secured, but it was a $60,000 line of credit. And my point here in sharing that is that second deal that I did, I was all in for like 50 something thousand dollars, like $58,000. And so all of my money was tied up in this one property. And basically I just made like every mistake in the book. Like I renovated a 1-1 house is not very desirable. It ended up being in a flood zone. The seller said it was in a good one. I didn't trust but verify. It ended up being in a bad one. It was not in a desirable neighborhood. I made it the best house in the neighborhood. Like I took a property, a small house that had termite damage, and it was the size of like a plate, ended up being, every wall I had to touch from the termite damage. I made every mistake. I literally got into it and I was like, oh, I'll just keep it as a rental. But then I didn't make a plan for like all of my money being tied up in this one property. I didn't know what to do next. Right. And so, I didn't. And I ended up selling that property at a loss just to get that money freed up and to be able to say, okay, I learned my lesson. Let me learn the lesson quickly and get a little bit clear on what I needed. I'll just say this, over the years, I've had to get clear at that roadmap, because when I thought I was clear, a lot of times I wasn't.
Yeah. Tiffany likes to call it Latte, the Streets University. There are 2 types of seminars people can go to. That's the one on the streets, or the one that you pay to go to and learn a strategy. So my point in asking, did you have that roadmap, is to ask you, if you did strategically plan, I'm going to be a single family rental investor, or I'm going to be an Airbnb, or I'm going to be this, that, do you think that would have steered you away from that mistake? But I mean, I know that mistake has paid dividends over the years, because you learned so much. I bet you learned so much on that. But would that roadmap have helped you to avoid that?
Yeah. And honestly, that has become one of the biggest things I recommend people to get. Like, hey, learn from my mistake. I took too long to get clarity. And so, and don't get me wrong, I have done a lot of deals. I have, done many things over the years, made money, but there's something to be said about having that clarity. A lot of times I say, what happened to me was, like I said, I'm going to do real estate. But then, so I get into that second deal and thinking I'm going to keep it as a rental, but I really didn't run good numbers on it. And then I ended up flipping it, which, if you don't plan to flip something and you flip it on the back end, again, you might lose money like I did.
Right.
But it's one of those things where that project ended up just being a distraction for me, right? Like I wasted 9 months on that property because I didn't know where I wanted to really go with clarity. And so a lot of times I liken it to going to the airport and saying, hey, I want to go to Europe. Well, that doesn't book you a flight, because that's way too broad. That doesn't tell you what to pack, for what type of weather, how to book where to book your stay at a hotel or an Airbnb. or what type of food to expect. It doesn't give you any sort of clarity on all those details. And so when people say, I want to invest in real estate, it's just the same thing. It doesn't give you any clarity to build out those action steps you need. And so until I got that clarity, I mean, I made some damage because I had a broad area. Like I got some stuff done, but a lot of it was by luck. And I found my way forward, and I forced my way through some things that I didn't. I mean, I consider myself a recovering flipper and wholesaler. I still relapse sometimes, but like I forced myself through years of that. And that really wasn't what I was wanting to do in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.